Hi everyone, it's October 2nd, 2025 and welcome to this month's A&D Medical live Q&A where we answer all of your cardiovascular questions live. My name is Abraham. I'm an advanced medical practitioner and pharmacist and the host of the YouTube channel here at A&D Medical where we create science-backed content focused on cardiovascular health and well-being. We go live every first Thursday of the month, 8 AM PST. So please mark it in your calendars. And we're going to dive into your questions. Just a bit of housekeeping before we begin. All of the questions I answer here are submitted by viewers like yourself through the comments on our YouTube videos and as well as our social media. So if you ever have a question about blood pressure, about heart health, or anything else we cover, just drop a comment in any of our videos and we'll do our best to actually get back to you and answer that question in our live show. Also, if you leave a comment in this live show whilst I'm doing the questions and going through all the questions, I will do my best to answer it in this episode there and then. However, if we don't have time, I'll just save it for next month's episode. That's housekeeping done. So let's begin. I have two tabs open, so I'm going to keep flicking back and forth from the live to my other tab. Okay, so if you leave a comment and I haven't responded to you yet, don't worry, I will get back to you. All right, so let's begin. This is a comment from Marianne Jessino 9882. Thank you so much for your comment. This is on our video on what do my blood pressure readings mean? What's a good blood pressure reading? What's a bad blood pressure reading? So we have a video on that. If you haven't seen it, definitely go and watch it. The comment is, it's so confusing. My mum is 100 years old. Should everybody's blood pressure be 120/80 or below? Whether you're a teenager or you're 100 years old. Hope this makes sense. Well, that makes complete sense. And this is one of the reasons why I love our YouTube live show on the A&D Medical channel so much, because certain questions you never really think about until other people tell you. And then you're like, actually, that's something that a lot of people probably are curious about. So the answer is blood pressure targets are not a one size fits all. So that's the first thing I want everyone to remember. So 120/80 millimeters of mercury. So when you're taking your blood pressure, that's what we call the ideal or normal blood pressure, right? That number is linked to the lowest long-term risk of things like heart attacks and strokes and kidney damage, all right? So that number is seen as the ideal number. But when we're talking about someone who's 100 years old, which is incredible, by the way, the goal might look a little different because in very elderly or frail adults, we sometimes aim for a slightly higher target, and that's quite normal because pushing blood pressure too low sometimes in elderly, frail, or even certain patients as well, by the way, don't have to be elderly, it can be certain patient groups as well with conditions. It can cause problems sometimes like dizziness, fainting, or falls. So the important thing is individualized care. So target should always be set by your healthcare provider, taking into account things like your age, your overall health, your medication. And it really comes down to something that I always got taught in pharmacy school as well, is the risk versus benefit scenario, basically. So sometimes if the risk outweighs the benefit that we're going to get from blood pressure reduction, then it might be time to actually increase that target threshold. I've had patients in the past who are quite frail, or they're on blood thinners, for example, and I've been wary about dropping their blood pressure too much because they're feeling faint and dizzy and having, minor falls sometimes. And you're like, hey, this is going too low and it's too risky, because if that patient was to fall and they're on a blood thinner, then they could have a bleed and it could result in something much, much worse. So in that scenario, for example, the risk versus benefit, the risk far outweighed the benefit. So it doesn't change the value either in home blood pressure monitoring. So checking at home your blood pressure readings and trends over time. And that information is going to help your medical provider as well to decide the safest and most effective blood pressure target for each person. So just to sum up, 120/80 millimeters of mercury is ideal for most adults. But in some, like someone who's over 100 years old, like someone with certain medical conditions, there might be a slightly higher target set by your medical provider's recommendation. And the key is working with your doctor and using a validated blood pressure monitor, like the A&D Medical blood pressure monitors that are all on the validated device listing, to basically help guide that decision so you're getting accurate readings. So thank you for that comment. I really love that one. I'm just going to check the live show just to make sure we're having no live comments. Okay, we are good. So yeah, I really love doing these live Q&A shows. So thanks to everyone for tuning in and actually leaving comments for us to answer on the A&D Medical channel. So let's go on to the next comment. And this one's a really cool one, actually. So it's from Graham992, or as they say in America, Graham992. What do you think about the new Apple Watch 11 and its hypertension notifications? I love this comment when I saw it. So Apple if you don't know, have just launched the Apple Watch Series 11. And one of the biggest new features is its hypertension notifications. So if you didn't know, now you're going to know about it. So what it does is it actually passively looks at how your blood vessels respond with each heartbeat over 30 days. And then it can flag if you may be having consistently raised blood pressure. So it's important because we all know, and I'm sure all the subscribers of the A&D Medical channel know, because I'm always talking about it, hypertension is the silent killer. It affects over 1 billion people worldwide. It often has no symptoms, so it's the silent killer, but because it's the leading risk of heart attacks and strokes and problems like that. But here's the key about the Apple Watch 11. So the Apple Watch does not measure blood pressure directly, all right? And it doesn't, because it doesn't have a blood pressure cuff, basically. So like our A&D Medical blood pressure monitors, they all have an inflatable cuff, and this is actually getting accurate blood pressure reading. So what it does do, excuse me, is it uses an optical heart sensor and algorithms, and it takes 30 days of background data to spot patterns. Now, this is great for an early warning, but it's not the same as a clinically validated blood pressure monitor like our A&D Medical blood pressure monitors. And this is where home monitoring of your blood pressure really matters, because if the actual Apple Watch flags, so if you get that hypertension notification, you should then check your blood pressure at home using a validated blood pressure monitor and doing it twice a day for 7 days and keeping your results, basically getting your results. If you don't know how to use your blood pressure monitor properly, we have videos on the channel, so definitely go and check them out after. And then sharing those results with your medical provider. A&D Medical blood pressure monitors are clinically validated, so our blood pressure monitors are clinically validated, they're tested and approved that they give you accurate blood pressure results, unlike a lot of blood pressure monitors, unfortunately, you can buy online. They're not on the validated device listing. And we actually invented the first digital home blood pressure monitor back in 1977. And I love saying that because it's something we're very proud about. So the Apple Watch 11 is exciting. It will, help raise awareness for millions probably who didn't know they have high blood pressure, which is incredible. But if you get that notification, don't just rely on the watch alone, because it's not able to give an accurate blood pressure reading. You will need to do home blood pressure readings and obviously then submit them to your medical provider and make them aware. I think that mix of wearable alerts plus accurate home measurements using a validated blood pressure monitor is the future of catching and managing hypertension earlier, because I guess if you think of it, the sooner we are able to catch high blood pressure and manage it earlier, the better benefits we're going to have. Like we spoke about earlier, risk benefit, there's a lot of benefit in catching high blood pressure earlier and reducing that overall cardiovascular risk. And by the way, I think in next week's video or the week after, we actually have a video going live where we test a smart watch blood pressure readings and a smart ring blood pressure readings, because some of them claim to take blood pressure readings, versus our accurate, blood pressure monitors by A&D Medical that are validated. So it's a really cool video that I'm really excited for you all to watch. So I'd love to hear your comments on that when it goes live. I'm just going to check the comment section. We've got a comment. Hadia Hussaini, are there certain times of the day that are better for checking my blood pressure? I always say with blood pressure, it's always best to have set times that you take them rather than taking them at random times during the day. So if you're going to do some close monitoring for your blood pressure, for example, I always say taking it first thing in the morning before you've had your medication, and then in the evening again. All right. So I always try and set them times at a reasonable time that works for you. The most important thing is that those times work for you, but try and then have set times that you do it. And then whenever you then continue taking your blood pressure, because you might not need to do it as often as that, twice a day, you might do it once every week. Once things are normalized, then try and stick to a set time that you like to do it, basically. So that's probably the best way for that. Thank you for your comment. So I'm just going to go back onto my sheet with all the comments that we've had from the viewers. And this is the next thing I want to discuss. And this is a new study in the Journal of American Heart Association, which looked at heart health of adults 65 and older. And I really wanted to share this study because it shows how heart health can decline with age, especially if you have high blood pressure, or you've had a stroke, or you've got heart failure. So it's a reminder of why home blood pressure monitoring and healthy habits really matter, and something we discuss a lot on the A&D Medical channel. So I'm just going to try and outline this study for you guys all, because I know it's going to be something interesting that I think we can learn from. So they basically compared two groups: people with no cardiovascular disease, that was one of the groups, and then the other group was people living with conditions like high blood pressure, stroke, or heart failure, right? And to measure this, the researchers used the American Heart Association's Life Essential 8 score. And this included things like your diet, physical activity, your sleep quality, or if you smoked, body weight, cholesterol, blood sugar, and your blood pressure reading. So a lot of the things that we actually touch up on in our videos on the A&D Medical channel, especially on our videos when we're talking about natural ways to help lower your blood pressure, these are a lot of the points actually that we discuss. So in the study, each person gets a score from 0 to 100. The higher the score, the healthier, basically. So 80 or above was considered high, 50 to 79 is considered moderate, and below 50 is considered low. So here's what they found. Adults without heart disease had an average score of 68, which is considered a moderate cardiovascular health. But those with high blood pressure or a stroke or previous stroke or heart failure, they had an average score below 60, and that's already much lower, which I found quite interesting. And even more concerning, the scores actually got worse over time. So for people with high blood pressure, scores dropped about 4% over time. For those who had a stroke, scores fell by about 11% over time. And for those with heart failure, scores declined by over 15% over time. So I think the key takeaway from this study was that older adults with cardiovascular disease start from a lower baseline of heart health. So that's important to remember. And their health basically tends to decline faster compared to peers without those conditions. Excuse me. And when researchers looked deeper, they actually found two main factors that explained most of the decline: blood pressure control and physical activity. So these are two things that we talk about a lot on the channel. So that's important because it tells us where we can intervene, really. So if we can help people control their blood pressure and stay active, then we could slow down the decline and keep them healthier for longer. And I guess that's exactly where home blood pressure monitoring is essential, because if you're checking at home, you can see if your numbers are consistently above target. And remember, that target for most people is below 130/80. And if you're seeing it creeping up, to then speak to your medical provider. And I always say this as well in our videos, especially when we're talking about physical activity. I think we've all got so used to a more stationary lifestyle. You know, we're waking up in the morning, we're sitting down, having breakfast. We then go and sit in our car and we drive to work for about half an hour or an hour's commute to work. We then sit in the office. We're then on the computer for 6, 7, 8 hours, sat down, basically not moving. And then we basically get back in our car, sit down and go home. We then sit on our sofa and watch television and we eat food. And then we go to sleep, and, you know, it repeats. So, you know, it's a really good way to think about, you know, am I actually doing the most physical activity, or can I actually do things to try and get more physical activity? And could I potentially maybe ride a bicycle to work? Could I potentially take a few more breaks, you know, during work when I'm working, I'm stationary and sat down, and do a bit more exercise? So these are all things that I always discuss on the A&D Medical channel, which I thought would be interesting to mention as well. So I just thought it was a really interesting message that we could give, and that we can make a real difference in keeping people's hearts healthier for longer. So I'm just checking the comments. We are doing good at the moment. We're up to date on that. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. We're getting a lot of viewers tuning in now. So going on to the next question. This is from Megan. Thank you for your comment. When does slightly elevated blood pressure require a consultation with a healthcare professional? I absolutely love this question, because this is a very important question I think a lot of people want to know about. And the first thing I wanted to say is, one slightly high reading isn't usually a reason to panic. Obviously, if it's really high, then yes, and we have a video about that. Like I said earlier, we have a video on what my blood pressure readings mean and what you should do about them. So if you haven't seen that, definitely go and watch that on our A&D Medical channel, because it goes through this in a lot of detail. But if it's one slightly raised reading, it's no reason to panic. But blood pressure goes up naturally. It goes up and down naturally during the day. That's normal. Things like stress, caffeine, rushing around, all these can affect our blood pressure, right? But what really matters is pattern over time. So if you're taking your home blood pressure readings and you're averaging them out, and you're consistently getting above 130/80 millimeters of mercury, that's the point when you need to speak to your medical provider, because it's especially important as well if you have other risk factors like diabetes, kidney disease, or even heart problems. Now, to trust these numbers as well, I think it's really important, and we've said it a few times, when you are using your blood pressure monitor, obviously make sure you're using it correctly. Watch our video on how to use it properly, but make sure you're using a validated device. All of our A&D medical blood pressure monitors are on the validated device listing. We call it VDL for short, but unfortunately, a lot of the ones you can buy online, they're not on the VDL list, so they're not accurate, and they can give us incorrect readings. So that's one thing to remember. Another thing as well is that at A&D Medical, we have a team of global engineers who are constantly testing our products, our devices, and always adding new features on them as well. So that's another reason why we're getting such accurate readings. We have features like advanced cuff fit detection, we have movement detection, we have tri-check technology on some of our devices. So all of this technology is really giving you that power to get the most accurate readings. And another key part as well to getting accurate home blood pressure readings is your cuff size and the placement. Is it placed correctly? Is it too tight? Is it too small? Because cuff size can make a big difference in you getting accurate readings. So these are things that I just want everyone to consider when it comes to taking your blood pressure. Excuse me. So just to sum up, don't worry about one high number, but if it's consistently above 130/80, you need to speak to your medical provider and make sure you're using a validated blood pressure monitor at home. That's the most important thing. Okay, I'm just going to check if we have any other comments, and we're looking good. So I just wanted to say we are up to date with all our comments now, and it looks like we haven't had any further comments with questions, but thank you so much for tuning in. We have videos every 2 weeks, a long video on our A&D Medical channel, where it's all about cardiovascular topics, from blood pressure to weight to cardiovascular risk, everything we discuss. All right, so definitely, if you haven't checked them out, go and check them out on the channel. We also have short YouTube shorts every week. We have 2 of them every week, and we have a live Q&A once a month, first Thursday of the month, 8 AM PST. So please always tune in, or you answer your questions live. And I've really loved doing this month's live Q&A. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as we always say at the end of every single video on A&D Medical, discover precision. Thank you so much and have a great day.